chapter. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. So today we are going into a new chapter. It is called the theory of contract. So before we get into this chapter, because this is the most important chapter of the semester and also the most difficult one. So before you get into the chapter, I just want to spend few minutes in in explaining you the outline of this chapter. So I want you to follow the outline and try to understand what exactly we are going to cover in this chapter. This is quite important, as I told you, because this chapter is directly related to economic related transactions and financial transactions and everything. All right. Okay. So this chapter, if you look into the chapter before, earlier we talked about the theory of properties and the theory of rights, and then lastly we discussed the theory of ownership. All these is actually a kind of introduction to this course. So the main chapter starts from here. All right, so you came to know what exactly property is, what is mal, how you deal with it, and what exactly the rights, what are the things that you need to know about the rights and obligations, and then what exactly is the ownership, what kind of complete ownership, and then what kind of incomplete ownership that you have. So these are the things that you learned. So now you are going to see something that is kind of application, right? So you learn what is mal. Now you are going to exchange the mal. So when you are exchanging with someone, what we call it actually transaction, right? So you have the ownership with you. Now you are going to transfer the ownership to someone. So you have the mal with you, but someone is interested in your mal, in your properties. So you are going to exchange it. So now what we are going to talk about is actually transaction. This is what we call the contract, and in Arabic it is called al-aqd. Yeah, in Bahasa also it's called akad. Yeah, so this is what the most important chapter for the semester. At the same time, it has so many dimensions and so many principles to learn. We are going to do that, but before I go into that, I want you to learn the outline. If you remember, if you learn this outline properly, if you understood the outline, then it will be easier for you to follow. Most of the time what happened, people come and complain, sir, I didn't understand this part. How do I relate this part to that part? Right? So this is one of the easiest way to understand understand the entire course. In any course, you need this mind mapping. You need to make sure that this particular discussion comes under what topic. So if you have that with you, then it will be easier for you to prepare for your examination. So this is where we have this outline. So I want you to understand. Most probably this is, as I told you, this is the important chapter, and also this is the biggest chapter. The biggest. So it will take almost a month. Probably it will take a month to finish this chapter. So it's gonna be like that. So I want you to understand first. We are going to talk about the definition, of course. As usual, when we talk about any chapter, we start with the definition. Then here, the most important that you need to know is actually pillars of contract. So I think the entire chapter is actually based on these three pillars. First one is expression, offer, and acceptance. The second one is the parties to a contract. The third one is the object and subject matter of a contract. Look at these three things carefully. You will understand these three things. Without these three things, there is no contract. So when you are selling and or buying something, there must be a way like expression, meaning to say that someone is putting the price, right? Someone is putting it in the supermarket, someone is actually putting it in the online shopping. Yes, Dafa, you have question? Dafa, do you have question? You raise your hand.
No, sir. There's no question. Sorry.
Okay. So the expression and that is what we need to learn first. Number one, the pillar number one. Then number two is actually the parties. The parties here, who are the parties? You and me is the parties, like a buyer and seller. They are the parties to a contract. The first one is actually the method of showing your properties, showing your items. In a way, it is called expression. Those days they used to call it siga, which is actually sayajual, you believe, these are the things, the terms that you heard before. And then the modern way of selling is different now, because now they have to just quote the price and then keep it in the market, and then you go there and you buy it. You don't have to even say it that I buy or you sell. You can also do the business through your ATM cards, even your digital transactions. We have the fintech right now. So this is what we call the expression. This is the first pillar that we are going to talk about it. Especially today, we are going to talk about expression. The next classes will cover the parties to a contract. So when we talk about the parties, is actually you and me, which means that buyer and seller. So now we are going to deeply talk about who can become the buyer. What are the qualities that buyer should have? The minimum qualification that something makes buyer or something makes seller, because Sharia wants to safeguard people's interest, because Sharia doesn't want injustice to happen. So you need to make sure that who you are dealing with. For example, you cannot deal with the minor. You cannot deal with a lunatic, even though he is offering a small price for iPhone. You are not supposed to buy from him, because your transaction is batil, which means it is invalid according to Sharia. These kind of things are invalid. That's because you are not buying from the qualified person. So this is what we are going to talk about in number two. All right, the parties to a contract. So that number two pillars of the the second pillar, the parties to a contract, will take some time, because they have so many things to discuss. We need to talk about their capacity, like I told you, the qualification. Then we need to talk about the obstacles in those qualifications. So it will take some time. And then we also need to cover the agencies. If someone wants to sell on your behalf, you are not here, you give your property to someone, the agent want to sell it for you. So this discussion also will come under this. Also, someone is a guardian, you are a minor, so the guardian will take care of your business. So the guardianship also will come under this pillar, which is pillar number two, which is the parties to a contract. So it will take some time to learn all this. Then you have number three, the object and subject matter of a contract, which is very simple to understand, which is actually the property itself. All right. So what you are selling or what you are buying. So we are going to talk about that property itself. So whether it is halal property or haram property, what kind of characteristic that should have. Can I buy something that is actually in box? I don't know what is inside. These kind of things. What kind of determination should be there? These are the things will come into discussion. when we talk about pillars number 3. All right, so this is what I want you to understand. So this is outline for you. These 3 pillars we are going to cover almost for almost 6, 7, 8 classes. So today what we are going to do is the first expression. All right, so we are going to talk about the first expression. And when we talk about the first expression, you can see on your right side, we're going to talk about the offer and acceptance. Yeah, and then we're going to talk about the conditions of expression, which is clarity, conformity, continuity. All right, so this is what today we are going to talk about. Let's go to this. Number 2 and number 3 will come later. All right, so that's why today we are going to talk about only this on your right upper side: expression, offer and acceptance, and then these conditions and conditions of expression. Okay, you need to know this first before we get into the pillars. As I told you, we need to talk about why we are doing this contract and what is the definition of contract. So here you can see that definitely you need to know that why we are, what is the purpose of contract. Is actually everybody has a different quality, and everybody has a different narrations and different characteristics. So we always need each other. There is no single human being is actually self-sufficient. Yeah, we are not self-sufficient, so we always need someone to fulfill their needs. So without other people's help, we cannot do that. That's the reason why we call this trade. So I have money, you have the product. So the seller, he needs your money, and the buyer, you need his product. So there is a mutual exchange, what we call it today, mutual economic needs. That's the reason why it is through trading and exchanges that humans fulfill their mutual economic needs. Then the Muslim should not take another properties unlawfully, but only by way of trade with mutual consent. So it is haram to take somebody's property unless if there is a mutual consent. Okay, you can take my property, in exchange you give me that. So it's like the what we call last time, it is called barter exchange. Okay, note it down, it's a very important term as well. Barter exchange is something that you always have something, and then you go to the market and then you say, okay, I have this, and can you give me that one? So I have goat, can you give me the other goat? I have these dates, can you give me sugar? I have this wheat, can you give me barley? So these are the things that what we call today, last time it is called a barter exchange, and then later people carry their money and then they go to the market and then they buy. And today people, they don't even carry money, they have money in their bank and then they just online order and then it comes to your home, delivered to your home. So the things are changing, but all this happening based on mutual consent, because you are happy with what you are doing. So Allah says in Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la ta'kulu amwalakum bainakum bil batil. Because if you take somebody's property, it's like you are eating their property bil batil, which is actually invalid. Allah says, do not eat someone's property, do not eat somebody's property, do not take somebody's property, otherwise it will become invalid. Unless illa an takuna tijaratan an taradin minkum. It has to be a way, there must be a system, there must be a mechanism that both of you can benefit, which means that there is a mutual consent. Illa an takuna tijaratan. It has to be trade, and the trade must be something that this is the characteristic of trade. The trade must be an taradin minkum. The trade must happen based on the mutual consent. So you need to understand the word tarad means both of you has to be mutual consent. It is not like the party A is happy, but party B is not happy at all. Like for example, gambling. Why do we say gambling is haram? Why it is prohibited? Because in gambling, party A will be happy, but party B is not happy at all, because they lose. I know they go there to lose, but they lose. When they lose, they are not happy. So you are taking somebody's money without any exchange. That is the reason why it is not based on mutual consent. When it is not, there is no mutual consent, which means it is prohibited. So today, any kinds of, not necessary it has to be called gambling. Do you have any other transaction that you are doing, any deal you are doing, whereby there is no mutual consent, people takes money from other people's money, then it is what? It is haram. That's why it was prohibited. So if you want to know those ways that people practice, which is unlawful practices, these are the examples for unlawful practices. For example, ushuri. The people who take interest, it is actually riba. This riba is usually, probably, it is actually not happening based on mutual consent. That's why we consider mudaraba, murabaha, musharaka, so that you become the partner and then you share the profit. Both of you share the profit. This is what we call mudaraba or murabaha. But when only one person is actually taking the advantage, when only the bank is actually collecting the money from you, regardless of what you earn, then it is called ushuri, which is actually not happening based on mutual consent. Gambling, ambiguity, giving short measures. This is all actually, you can see, read all this is actually examples of unlawful practices. Batil also refers to cheating, fraud, bribery, and breach of trust. For example, when someone dealing with raswa, there is no mutual consent is happening. That again, this is actually unlawful batil practices. Taking another's property through misinformation, wrong advertisement. Look, this is what today is happening. I want you to concentrate on wrong advertising. Show me that how many authentic and proper advertisement out there. You look at the advertisement, they most of the time they actually advertise something that is not true, and then they bring the celebrity to show you that how important is that product, but the celebrity himself will not use it. So the celebrity will only show his face because people will buy because of his face, right? So this is something actually uh, not honest, not being honest. Most of the examples of the advertisement, you can see that mostly it's a wrong data, starting from the toothpaste advertisement, soap advertisement. Sometimes they show this makeup, the thing that you use this product, you will be change. You drink this product, you will change. These are the things. The truth is not there. It's all misinformation, wrong advertising, right? So this is how people, they are triggering people's interest so that people go and buy. So most of the time what happened, it's all, if you look into the advertisement market, just close your eye one minute and then think about the advertisement that you see, starting from the YouTube. When you are watching YouTube, when you are watching the TV, look at all those structure of the advertisement. You will find one thing. They will tell you that you need to flourish your life. You need to live the fullest of your life. Enjoy your life. Improve your life, or maybe develop your life. Develop yourself, develop your body, develop your beauty, develop your strength. If you look into all those advertisements, this is the motto. Whether it is the coffee commercial, or whether it is a property commercial, or whether it is medical commercial, or cosmetic commercial. You will look on only this motto. The motto is telling you what? You have to uplift your life, enjoy the fullest. You make your life better. So now, when you are watching and keep on listening, it somehow it goes to your subconscious mind. It's stored there. So when you see the product, you want to go for it, you want to take it. And the shampoo, for example, the shampoo advertisement, it comes to you when you see the shampoo, or you see that company, particular company, you see, you want to take it. That's because the commercial shows you that, it looks fine, it looks good, his hair is actually flourishing here and there. But when you go and try it, or it won't happen to you the same way. The thing is, what I'm trying to tell here, the motto is actually improve your life. So look, there is a kind of dialogue, there is a kind of conversation is happening. I don't know how many of you identify the conversation. The conversation is this: I give you the info that you make your life better. For exchange that you give me your money. So this is what indirectly this conversation is always happening. I don't know how many of you still understood what I'm saying. Okay, I repeat again. For those who didn't understand this, I repeat again. There is an indirect conversation is happening when you are watching any advertisement. The conversation is like this: I am telling you that you have to make your life better, and then live the fullest and enjoy your life. In for exchange that you have to earn and earn and earn, and then you have to give me the money. So come and give me the money. So all those companies asking you, starting from the phone companies or whatever it is, the mobile, everybody is asking your money, looking for your money. There is no advertisement showing you that you have to help your brother, you have to help your sister, you have to help your parents, you have to make other people's life better. Show me which advertisement is actually showing you that, telling you that you have to go and help others, you have to pay money to your parents, and then make sure that you make your surroundings good, make sure that you make this universe better, make sure that it is not like it is one to one, one on one. If you look into all those advertisements, they are simply targeting your money, whether it is your money or our parents' money or somebody's money. They are targeting in your pocket, so that you can come and spend, whether you spend here or you spend some other places. Well, at the end of the day, you will be going for spending. You will go and buy that shoes just because somebody wear it. Maybe it's because of some celebrity wear it, and you just want to feel happy because you are wearing it. Whether it is a jeans, or whether it is even in fact today, even the fashion became even tudong, even it is a hijab. We call it Sharia requirement is hijab, but now even it became fashion because you want to go for that particular company because you like that company, or maybe you like the person who wear it, or maybe the person, the characteristic, maybe the celebrity comes and do it. So what's happening here, there is a conversation happening indirectly. They are just looking for your money, right? So that's the reason why people don't see this, because there are lots and lots of misinformation. A soap is not going to change your life, a toothpaste is not going to change your life, but they are showing it. They say, okay, you use this, you will become strong, and then you will be able to change the life, you will be able to change the world, right? This is all actually gimmick. Yeah. So I just want you to understand this, because when we are talking about through misinformation, wrong advertising and labeling, and this is what comes. Whether it is a food advertisement, you look into the food advertisement, the company is actually selling cholesterol to you. How many of us we know, how many of us we learn this, that we are eating cholesterol, and all this fast food is actually somehow is going to our blood vessels, and then one day it's going to stop, the passing the blood, and then people getting, because of that, people are having high blood pressure. Some of them, they are having stroke, and then you can see the obesity is happening. And then you can see even the diabetes. These countries, subhanallah, Malaysia used to be a very healthy country, but not anymore. There are so many diabetes cases, so many. The government is actually worrying about his citizens, because in everything we have sugar. In every Coca-Cola that we are drinking, it's a full of sugar. And then why it is actually a coke or a carbonated drink? How a carbonated drink is going to change our life? It's just going to stop our thirst, but it's showing you that it's going to change your life. So this is all actually misinformation, wrong advertising. I want you to be aware of it. You are the future generation. I humbly asking you, suggesting you, you have to be aware of it. And if there is something comes, you need to speak out. You need to tell. Why are you need to go and talk to the company. You need to complain to the, what do you call this, there is a court, consumer court. There is a consumer court. I don't see people go and complain. Very few people complain. And then those few people also, people call them crazy people. They are not crazy people. They are the people who are telling the truth, right? This is not gonna change. I mean, it's not going to make change now, but when you are growing slowly, you are growing and growing. When you become 30s and 40s, then you will see the result. The body is not going to be like now it is responding. After you become 30 and 40, some of you or some of us, maybe most of us, will have problem because of this lifestyle. The food, and the food we are having, the drink we are drinking, the food we are eating, it's going to cost us a lot. I just want you to be aware of it. Just remember, this is the perfect time that I tell you, because this is person. But you need to understand, now you are not drinking and eating, alhamdulillah. This is fasting that you are doing, but this is the right time to understand this. There is a world behind this. There is a politics behind it. There is a money making capitalist behind it. All right, so we are here in Kulliyyah of Economics, and we are talking. This is very relevant, quite relevant. So why it is actually they are giving the misinformation, wrong advertising, which carbonated company is actually telling the truth? They are actually giving you full of sugar. That sugar is changing your body, and it's actually a cost a life. So now what I'm trying to tell you, need to be aware of it, and then in future, even starting from today, you need to be against of it, and then you need to show your opinion, whether it is a social media or directly to them. You need to show your opinion. You need to tell, this is wrong. This is not how you should promote your product. This is wrong. You need to tell openly. You need to tell. So this is how you need to also educate your family, educate your siblings, educate your friends, because tomorrow if they are having these difficulties, you will be also affected, right? So that's why I just want to give you this information. So this is what we call unlawful batil practices. It also covers all transaction on prohibited haram things, or the provisions of an venue for the people to spend on prohibited things and activities. The word batil also covers all those dealings that harm the society and prevent people from attaining, it is prevent people from attaining prosperity and salvation in this world and the hereafter. It is also possible to argue that a transaction that creates debt upon a person who is not able to pay them, or could not reasonably be expected to pay them, could also be included in unlawful transactions. Yeah, it is possible that a person cannot pay, or maybe he took the loan, but if the loan keep on increasing, he cannot pay. This is also unlawful transactions. Yeah, so this is then the only valid through which ownership could be transferred is through mutual mutual agreement and trading. Much of Islamic economics and finance is based on contracts between two or more parties, whether it is a contract to purchase goods or a contract to make a loan. In this theory, we will discuss the principles of trading and mutual agreements, and will explain detailed rules and regulations on the formation of contracts. So this is what actually we are going to talk about, yeah, starting from definition. Okay. Okay, let us go to the definition. What is aqad? The word aqad is actually in Arabic. It is originally meaning tying something. You know, tightly you tie. You have the rope, you have the tali, and then you tie. You make this. This is what we call aqad, as in tying a rope. Arabs used the word to speak about firm belief or determination. Look, this firm belief, if you remember, and in the first class we talked about aqidah. Look, the word aqidah, look at the word aqad. It comes from the same root word. In Arabic, there's a root word, aqada, i'tiqad, aqidah, mu'taqid. All this comes to aqad. All this comes from the same source, same root word. So now firm belief, what we learned last time, aqidah means the belief system, also comes from the word aqad. But here we are going to talk about the word. It is used for transactions. They also use the word aqad al-yamin to mean give an oath. For example, if there is a session that you have to give oath, let's say you go to mahkama, court, then you need to give oath. So this is what aqad. Along the same line in aqdatun nikah, this aqad I think most of us we know because it used in the marriage contract. You need to also know marriage also a contract. Marriage also a kind of contract. The word aqad also carries the meaning of obligations as used in the first verse of the surah. Or you believe, fulfill your obligation. Awful uqud. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awful uqud. This is the first verse of the Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah say uqud in plural. Allah say fulfill your transactions. In Islamic jurisprudence, okay, what is the definition in Islamic jurisprudence? A legally binding obligation. So this is the definition of contract. A legally binding obligation which has consequences for its subject. Okay, this is legally binding because there is a buyer, there is a seller, so this is a legally binding obligation. When there is a aqad is happening, transaction is happening, there is a legal binding is happening. But once that legal binding happens, there is a consequence for its subject. The subject means the property, the product that you are selling or you are buying. It has a consequences. What I mean by consequences, it is moving from one hand to another hand. It's going from one place A to place B. So there is a consequences. So the product will be owned by someone. So let's say if someone buying a goat from someone, a goat was belong to Malik. Now Khalid, he bought it from Malik. So the goat is belong to Khalid. So it's been moved from one place to another place. This is what we call consequences for its subject. According to Islamic law, a promise may not be legally enforced, although it is strongly recommended by religious and moral values to be fulfilled. All right. You need to also understand promise is promise. Binding a contract is a contract. Therefore, a breach of a promise to a marry does not give a cause of action according to Sharia. However, in certain circumstances, a promise may become legally binding. Okay, here what we are talking about, is it promise can become aqad or not? Let's say you booked something, you wanted to buy something, so you told that, okay, I wanted to buy, but I will buy next week. See, there's a future tense that you are using. I will buy next week, or I will marry you next year. So this is all called promise. This promise it will not become aqad until the day comes and then you do the aqad, right? That's the reason why engagement, for example, in marriage, engagement is not necessarily make you couple. All right, I want to clear the air. This is the truth. This is what Sharia says. Engagement, after the engagement, I can go anywhere with her or with him. I can be like a husband and wife. No, cannot. It is haram. It is haram to become husband and wife after the engagement, because engagement is just a promise that I will marry you. It's like I'm asking, will you marry me? So it's like a promise. So the promise may be broken. We pray it should not broken, but it is a possibility that promise can be broken. Then they have to go back to their own places. So that's the reason why engagement cannot make you husband and wife. So coupling and dating is not permitted even after the engagement. Then you cannot ask me, what about before engagement? If it is not even possible after engagement, how it is supposed to be possible before engagement? Before engagement, it is, of course, it is haram. It is prohibited. The coupling and dating is prohibited because even after the engagement. So the thing you need to understand here is actually it's just a promise. It can be broken. So I say, for example, okay, I will buy your phone next week. I will buy your phone next week. I will have money next week, so I will buy your phone next week. It doesn't mean that I became the owner of your phone. I just gave you the promise. I cannot become the owner of your phone until I give you the money. Then you give me your phone. Then I become the owner of your phone. Maybe I told you next week I will buy. Suddenly, after one day, I changed my mind. I said, okay, I'm getting cheaper price. I'm getting from another party cheaper than the price that you quoted. So he might go there. So promise can be broken. That's why it cannot become contract. But
So,
there is a difference. There is a difference. The difference is in business, especially there are a couple of business that we are dealing today, especially with the banks. It based on promise. Those are the exceptionals that I want you to understand. This is where we have the business like BBA, Bay Bisaman Ajil, or you call it Murabaha. This business is actually you and your bank is actually doing this, and you are making it an enforcement of these terms, and you agree that okay, I will pay this money over the time and based on this promise. So now let's say you are going for the house loan and you said you want to do murabaha loan, and then you want to buy a product and you are buying monthly, even though you are not becoming complete owner of it, but the bank actually make you owner of it based on the promise that you give. That is exceptional. This is where you can see when the bank relies on the promise and purchase the property, the customer is under an obligation to purchase the property from the bank based on the promise which he has made. This promise can become the contract. That's because there are many parties, especially the bank comes in. All right.
so,
Yes, Leon, go ahead.
so can I say that sometimes if promise like the example that given by sir just now, like if I give a promise to you and I will I will achieve this promise. So on this condition, can I say that the promise already become legally binding for this condition?
Mm-hmm.
So for another example, it's like if now I promise you to buy you something on in next week or something else, but if until that day I didn't buy it because of some emergency issue. So in this condition, the promise already not become legally binding. Is it correct, sir?
Okay, you need to understand two things here. You see, when I say promise cannot become contract until it is legally binding, meaning until you go and you make it on that particular day. It means that promise, that's because the promise can be broken. That's why we don't call it promise as a contract unless it happened physically, it happens on the day. But it doesn't mean that someone can break the promise. It's different department. It's a different sector, because when you are breaking the promise, you are actually, ethically speaking, you are actually harming someone. That is actually different from business and transaction and economics. It goes to social, it goes to personal, it goes to psychological. Meaning, when you are promising something and you are not fulfilling your promise, then there is a consequences between two parties, which means that it is not purely business, but it is purely ethical. So ethically it is wrong to break the promise. Ethically it is wrong, but a promise, like for example, I will buy your product next week. This promise cannot become business, cannot become the contract unless you confirm with some payment and then you continue paying gradually. You see, when you are paying, for example, down payment, even though you didn't pay entirely, it is not a promise. You already started doing the business. So let's say I will pay my money. I'm doing this business with you. I'm willing to buy your phone, but right now I have only 1,000 ringgit. So I pay 1,000 ringgit and then I book your phone. Next week I will bring another 1,000 ringgit. I will pay you and then I will collect the phone from you. This is not promise. This is already contract. This is legally binding contract. The only thing is you didn't give the full money. That's why he keeps your product. So this is not promise. The promise is something that, you know, I will buy next year, I will buy next week. So what happened that when you say this and then you didn't show any interest of buying, you didn't pay any, that's why they're asking for booking fee. That's the reason why today they are asking for down payment. That's because they want to secure your product. And at the same time, they cannot wait for you until you come back, because there are so many other options. There are so many other customers they are willing to buy. So that's why they cannot keep that product for you based on your promise, right? But here what we are talking, when it comes to bank, because the bank is already making this contract based on the promise that you will be paying money over the time, for example 7 years or 9 years or maybe 20 years if it is a house, but at the beginning you are paying something. So the promise starts with the payment, which is actually the down payment. So this is where the bank is actually making you letter of authority. So they are giving you authority to go into the house and then to reside in the house. So they are making you a partner in some transactions. In some transactions they make you owner, right? Even though it is based on promise, but there is a written promise and also there is a down payment has been done. So this is what I want you to know, the difference. Is it clear, Leon?
Sir, yes, I'm understood. So, sir, can I say that if now we are not going talking about the promise or contract. So if I like sir said just now, like I give the down payment first. So at this time, no matter I'm going to do the promise or the contract, it's already become a legally binding because I already give the down payment.
Exactly.
And party B already secure the product for me.
Yes.
So at that time, I will pay the full payment and I will get the product from party B.
Yes.
So one buy and one give. Am I right, sir?
Exactly. You're right. You are right. Very good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. A contract must be recognized by law and legally binding. An agreement to destroy certain goods or to steal some property is not recognized by law and as such unenforceable. In Islamic law, aqd could be used in its broader sense and may include all legal undertakings or obligations. This undertaking may be made unilaterally, such as creation of endowment waqf or writing off loans, we call ibra. Aqd also could include a bilateral contract, again mistake, contracts or agreements such as sale, rent, mortgage, and partnership. So this is also another way of doing, sometimes people do this waqf endowment. They say that, okay, there is a property for me. I want to give this property to that company or to that person or to that madrasa or to that institute. So it's like an endowment. Yeah. So this is also, or sometimes, writing off loans means that, for example, you have the educational loan and some institute or scholarship unit comes and say, okay, we are writing off your loan, so we are paying on your behalf. So this is all or any other bilateral contract or agreement such as sale, rent, mortgage, and partnership. All this, everything include, it is all comes under Islamic law of aqd. Yeah. Okay. Now you are going to talk about what is the pillars of contract. So let us start with what exactly we mean by pillar. Arkan. So the word rukun in Arabic means pillar. The word plural is arkan. Rukun means pillar, arkan means pillars. Rukun, what is considered to be necessary for a thing to exist, and it is part of it. Consent is the cause for the existence of a certain contract. If either party to a contract doesn't give his consent, the contract does not exist. The Prophet ﷺ narrated, it is unlawful to take the property of a Muslim except by his consent. Consent is actually what? Rida. Yeah. Without rida, you cannot take a property of anybody, not only a Muslim, anybody. You cannot take their property without their consent. So which means that this consent is something hidden phenomenon unless expressed. You cannot show, you cannot actually see the consent unless it's been shown. That's why it has to be expressed, right? Like I told you, it has to be, how do you know the consent? You want to buy his phone, but in a way you need to see whether he agree or not. So he has to say, okay, I agree, or maybe he has to smile, or maybe he has to say like this. So these are the signals of consent. Yeah. Without consent, there is no business. So consent can be known through an offer, ijab, and acceptance, qabul, by the parties. Yeah. Okay. Here we are talking about the first pillar. Yeah. I want you to understand. Okay. This is the first expression. Okay. Before that, okay, I start again here. So this is pillars of contract. What we are talking here is actually the consent, and consent can be known through an offer and ijab. Look, the consent is something that has to come from the seller and also the buyer. That's why there is an offerer and there is an acceptor. Let's say you are the seller, then you are offering something to me, and I am the buyer, so I'm accepting from you. So when you say it is 1,000 ringgit, the phone is 1,000 ringgit, I go there, I look into it, and then I said, okay, I accept. So I said, okay, boleh, which means that I accept, right? So this is what offer and ijab is called. Ijab in Arabic, acceptance means qabul in Arabic, by the parties. Okay, here I want you to understand the difference. According to the majority scholars, the pillars of contract is three. Okay, like we discussed earlier, remember the three pillars of the contract. The first one is expression. The expression is what? Ijab and qabul. And then the second pillar is the parties, buyer and seller. The third pillar is actually subject matter, the property, the product that you are selling. So how you do business, number one, to whom you are doing business, number two, and then what are you doing business, what kind of product you are so what so who, how, who, what. This is how you can remember. How, the way of expression. Who is actually the parties, the second pillar. What is actually exactly what are you selling, so the product. So these are the three pillars. How, who, what is actually three pillars according to the majority scholars, right? But as you know that when it comes to fiqh, there is always a usul al-fiqh. So different methodology will bring different conclusion. So according to Hanafi, they are slightly different. Earlier also you can see that they were slightly different when we talk about usifract. Yeah, according to the majority scholars, usifract is also a property, but according to Hanafi, it is not a property unless it comes together with the property. Similarly, it goes to movable property, immovable property. They also had differences. That's because their methodology is different. That's why their conclusion will be different. So here we are actually learning both. So according to majority, there are three pillars. But according to Hanafi, there is only two pillars. And that two pillars is actually the first pillar is the first pillar. The two pillars of the Hanafi is actually equivalent to the first pillar of the majority. According to Hanafi, the second pillar of the majority and the third pillar of the majority is not the pillar of the contract. It is something that requirement, but for them, the pillar is only these two. That's the reason why you will see this. You might see now it's why it is that we need to learn this, but later I will justify you why it is necessary that we need to also learn Hanafi, because today there are so many transactions you cannot do unless you follow Hanafi. So remember the three pillars of, sometimes it is difficult to follow the majority scholars because they go for three pillars. Sometimes you do business, you don't have all three pillars with you. But according to Hanafi, it is possible. That's why I will tell you, I will give you the justification later. But right now, just remember this information that according to Hanafi, it is only two pillars. And that two pillars are offer and acceptance. So offer is one pillar and acceptance is another pillar. Right? So offer, for example, seller is one pillar, and then the buyer, the acceptance is actually another pillar, which is actually what we call earlier the first pillar of the majority scholar. According to Hanafi, the elements of aqad include anything that manifests the meeting of two intentions, either through conduct, action, or writing. Some other matters are not considered as pillars of a contract. However, their existence is necessary. For example, it is necessary that there must be contracting parties in order to have ijab and qabul. Similarly, there must be a subject matter upon which the parties have the agreement to indicate that there is the meeting of two intentions. This is necessary, of course, but they didn't put it inside the pillars. All right. According to the majority schools, you will see that there are three pillars. The first one, it is called expression, which is sigha, which is actually include offer and acceptance, which is mean ijab and qabul. So ijab, qabul, these two things called expression, which means in Arabic it is called sigha. Sigha means expression. Expression means ijab and qabul. Ijab means offer. Qabul means acceptance. Number two, pillar number two, according to the majority, the parties. al-aqidan. Number 3, the subject matter, mahall al-aqd, or the property on which a contract is concluded. This is where I told you last time, I mean just before few minutes, I told you in order to understand these 3, go for how, who, and what. Okay, remember all this. Because these 3 pillars you need to remember the entire semester now. So every time I ask you what is the 3 pillars of the contract, you need to tell. How? Number 1 is how, because it refers to expression. Number 2 is who, because it refers to the parties. Number 3 is what. It refers to the subject matter, the product, and the property that you are selling. Okay. So again, let me show you this one also, and then I come back to the question. Hanafi, as I told you, pillars of contract is ijab and qabul. Look, Hanafi, only ijab and qabul. So they have only 2 pillars of contract. Majority, the pillars of contract, how many? 3. You have sigha, number 2, contracting parties, number 3, subject matter. And look, under the sigha, they have what? Ijab and qabul. Under the siga, they have ijab and qabul, and this is what became 2 pillars of Hanafi, only ijab and qabul. I will give you examples and everything, why it is different and what are the consequences. Don't worry, I will be explaining to you. I will be giving you the justification, right? So this is for now. I think I stop here. So then, inshallah, in the next class, we will be talking about the expression ijab and qabul, the siga. All right, the first pillar of the contract we are going to talk about in the next class.